A question that has likely bothered many of you, certainly bothered me, is if you're thinking about getting a Sig P365, which version should you get? As you know, the objectively, ontologically correct answer is all of them, but just hypothetically, if that were not a practical solution, which one do you go for, especially for concealed carry? I've got the definite answer today because we tested 4 models. The standard 10-round P365 missionary position iron sight model, which is the smallest and the most reasonably priced of these guns. I'm going to call it the Micro. We tested the 12-round P365XL, quickly becoming my favorite concealed carry handgun. The 17-round P365, the Macro right here, brand new to me. And then the P365 AXG Legion, that's the all-metal version of the Macro with all the features. In my mind, the standard P365 that I have might be a little small and a little snappy compared to its big brothers. It weighs just a mere 18 ounces, 5.8 inches long, 4.3 inches tall, a slim 1 inch thick, but still holding a whopping 11 rounds of potent 9mm. My old school version is one of the first off the production line. It is not optics ready. I know this is boomer as fuck, but I don't think I want to screw with this gun. I have about 5,000 rounds through it, not a single malfunction except that one time where I was performing the first 2,500 round torture test without cleaning it. Yep, there we go. First failure to feed. I want to say I'm about 1,300 rounds in, and that was the first failure to feed that I've had. So I trust this gun. I don't want to mess with it. I don't want to replace it. That said, I envision the P365, the original, the Micro, as more of a deep concealment, close range option. I'm not worried about not having an optic that would just add bulk. Or should I be worried? We find out today because all of the other models we tested have optics. The P365 Macro is a significantly larger gun, but with significantly more capacity, holding 7 more rounds. That's right, this is a 17+1 round gun, the same capacity as a full-size Glock 17 or a Sig P320, while only being 22 ounces, 5.1 inches by 6.6 inches. If you're keeping score at home, that means the Macro is about exactly 35% larger than the regular P365 and a quarter pound heavier. If you're going to ignore the thick magwell that we've got right here, the AXG Legion version is identical in size and capacity, but 4 ounces heavier than the Macro due to the aluminum frame. It's also got a built-in compensator, which is available for the Macro too if you want it. Finally, my perfect Goldilocks Angel, the Sig P365XL, right in between the Macro and the Micro, 12+1 capacity, 1/3 of an inch shorter in the grip than the Macro with the same barrel length. It's 20.7 ounces, almost perfectly between the Macro and the Micro in weight. To me, the XL is the ultimate compromise between concealability and performance, or so I believe. I honestly don't even know. I've shot all of these guns, but never pitted them against each other to see which one I actually shoot best with. That's what we're doing today. I'm at the best gun range in the South, the Neutral Ground Gun Company, 212 Aycock Street, Araby, Louisiana. Here's how we're doing this. We've got one IPSC target, and we've got an unofficial bullseye pistol target. I'm shooting 10 rounds into the IPSC target as fast as I can while still getting all of my rounds in the A zone. Then I'm going to shoot 2 of those bullseye targets with each gun as quickly but accurately as possible. I'm going to take my average scores to figure out which gun works best for me. Why do 2 targets like this? The bullseye target and the IPSC target? Because between us girls, I consider speed on the A zone to probably be the most important factor. After all, we're not shooting King John's archery tournament with these things. We're going to most likely use them to defend ourselves in close range. At the same time, I think overall accuracy is still a useful data point, especially if you want an approximation of how precise you can be at a longer distance while still moving at a good clip. For me, my focus is finding the smallest gun with good capacity I can quickly tap out as many rounds as it has into a small box on a torso, because that's why I carry a gun. Now, I want to tell you that I warmed up with dry fire and shot all of them first, test targets or something, but that's not true at all. I went in cold and dry with the P365 Micro first, because honestly, that's what's most likely to happen in a defensive gun use. That's all 10 of them in the A zone pretty rapidly, actually. That first one, I was like, kind of forgot what I was doing. And then all 9 of those just right in there from 7 yards. Like, do you want? Do you need something more accurate or faster than that. I don't know.
No one gets attacked on the way home from the range. I put all 10 into the A zone in 4 seconds in a 5.4 inch wide group, which tells me that maybe I should have sped up a little bit, but I still felt good about this target nonetheless. I then shot 2 groups of 10 rounds at 7 yards. The first was an 84 out of a possible 100 in 6.32 seconds. The second group an 88 out of 100 in 5.13 seconds. My XL was next, and I was using an optic, the Holosun 507K, one of my favorites. I'll drop a link in the description if you want to pick one up.
Sig P365XL using a Holosun 507K. Wonderful little optic. So let's see how it does, 7 yards on an IPSC target. Ready?
Unsurprisingly, I was faster and more accurate with the XL. 10 rounds into a 4 1/4 inch group in just 2.56 seconds. Blazing.
God, that was 12. I'm gonna stop it. I'm gonna stop the timer at 10. That felt like it was faster. That felt like it was faster. I mean, that is comparable accuracy, right? I mean, I don't think it's because of the optic necessarily, could be, but I really felt myself getting some extra leverage with that pinky finger. It seemed to have made a huge difference.
For the bullseye targets, I shot 2 groups that were nearly identical in time and accuracy. A 90 in 5.03 seconds and an 89 in 5.05 seconds, just 2/100ths of a second apart and 1 point difference. I don't know what that means, but it sounds like a good thing to me.
That's everything in the 9 ring and 10 ring except for 1. That's pretty effing good. I mean, this is something I can be confident in. I can shoot this accurately. I can shoot this quickly. Self-defend myself with speed and power. I really like this thing.
I then moved on to the Macro, which was again a little bit faster, a little bit more accurate than the XL. I used a Romeo 0, which is not that great of an optic. I think Sig calls it the Zero because that's what you have to do with it every few weeks if you want it to be on target. There's a trend here. As I move up marginally in size and weight along the guns, my accuracy and speed also increased. We only got the time for one of these groups because Ryan's camera cut out mid-group, but I shot a 91 average and the time sequence was just 4.37 seconds.
Threw one outside. Wow, into the 7, but boom, 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 boom. Pretty fast.
Interestingly, I was actually slower and sloppier with the Macro versus the XL and the A-zone target with a 7.5 inch group in 3.16 seconds, double the size of the XL group and slower. I chalked that up to being the first time I actually shot a Macro with an optic ever, but it looks like the truth came out with the smaller targets. In other words, I shot it a little bit better than the smaller XL. Finally, the Legion was, of course, the top performer. It's the heaviest gun with the best optic and the best trigger and the best Cerakote job because that matters. I shot a 91 and a 92 in 4.1 seconds. Ryan shot a 93 in like 4.2 something seconds with a fast time too.
Everything in the 9 except for 1. I mean, damn, that's actually pretty good there. Dude. I mean, I'm calling that's everything inside the 9 or the 10. Holy shit. Like it?
Send me one, Sig. It's sick.
At 3 seconds with a 5.75 inch spread on the A-zone target, telling me I probably could have gone faster with this too. So with all that aside, which one of these guns is the best? It's a relative term. What are you going to do with it? How much money do you have? As we've shown multiple times, the P365 is perfectly capable with 11 rounds of 9mm inside of 7 yards. It's the smallest, it's the lightest, you don't need no stinking optic, but you could get one. I carry the P365 at least once a week. This is probably the only one of these pistols you can realistically pocket carry, yet it's absolutely effective and controllable. But when you move up to the XL, you get a lot of gains for not much of a size difference. You get 7/10 of an inch longer barrel for better ballistic performance, standard optic readiness, the additional 2 rounds of capacity, perhaps most importantly, the ability to get a full grip with all your fingers, no dangling pinky, which appears to translate into better recoil management, better accuracy, and faster times. In fact, for some reason, the XL had the fastest time on the A-zone target by far of all the guns, with the smallest group size too.
I really felt myself getting some extra leverage with that pinky finger. It seemed to have made a huge difference.
That could have been dumb luck, of course, but it does show the gun's potential capability. But does that same logic translate up to the Macro or the AXG Legion? As with pretty much everything else in life, you hit a point where as you go up, you get diminishing returns in terms of cost versus performance. Now that said, you're not adding a whole lot of weight to go up from the XL to the Macro, and the slide is the same size, but you get an additional 5 rounds of capacity, and we shot the Macro only slightly better than the XL. Compare that to a pretty big jump from the 365 Micro to the XL in terms of performance. On top of that, with the Macro, you've got a gun that is taller than a Glock 19 to accommodate those additional rounds. You heard me right, at least two-dimensionally, the Macro is a bigger gun than the Glock 19, although it is significantly thinner in the grip and the frame. But if carrying a gun larger than a Glock 19 but smaller than a Glock 17, still getting 18 rounds of capacity, if that sounds good to you, have at it. It's barely heavier than the XL, a little bit bigger, adding a staggering amount of capacity. Finally, this Legion is of course the top dog and the best performer, but it's also heavier than a Glock 17 at 26 ounces, and it cost a whopping $1,200. Otherwise, it's similar to the Macro, which costs 2/3 as much. For me, I'm not going to be carrying the Legion. Too heavy, too expensive. I'm still going to work my Micro into my carry rotation depending on what I'm doing and what I'm wearing. At this point, I'm perfectly satisfied with the concealability, the capability, the price, everything with the P365XL, and this test today just reinforced these already positive feelings I had about this specific gun, the XL. It's still small enough to conceal very easily, which is why I'm probably going to stick with the XL over the Macro. And for me personally, the XL is the winner. It performs for me about as well as the Macro, and it's much smaller. If I can only choose one, I'm going with the XL. Big butt coming through. As we've shown on this channel before, what works for one guy might not necessarily work for another guy. But I think maybe giving you my personal perspective on what works for me, why I've come to the decision that I've come to, will be helpful for you to make the best decision for yourself. I'll tell you this. Capability with all these models was similar. These are all fantastic pistols. If you've got one already, don't start getting all grass is greener on me. These all have their pluses and minuses. They're all fantastic carry options. And you are a fantastic viewer. Have I told you that before? I love you guys. Take care of yourselves out there, please. Don't forget to subscribe. This is my personal channel, not TFB TV. But make sure you flip over to TFB TV for the full review on the P365 AXG Legion. Take care.